It wasn't just simply writing a list of people. There's a lot more to it than that. It's looking at people that I'd harmed, exactly what I had done to hurt them, how they were affected by my actions, and any other kind of consequences from that.
Steps 1 to 7 are all about the addict. It's all about the self-centered addict, and it's been all about them. It's been all about who they are, what they've done, building a foundation. Now we're asking to start thinking about the harm that you've caused to others.
No matter how much we try, our default is to be selfish and self-seeking and negative. That's my own experience of my addiction and my disease of addiction, and that is still with me even in recovery. It's always about me. I wish to make this amends because I wish to feel better because of the harms I've done, and that is not the nature of this step. It's about making a list of those we have harmed, being willing to make amends to them and doing it for them. But genuinely making somebody else feel better and valued, really, instead of just looking out for yourself.
You've got to look at the harms that you've done, no matter what people may have done to you in the process of you causing that individual or community or whatever harm, and you have to make a list.
There's a tendency to want to rush to make amends. Once they're aware of, more acutely aware of the problems that have been caused and the difficulties and the harm, there's a tendency to want to rush to make amends, to rush to apologise and say sorry and go through that process. However, if step 1 isn't firmly in place, they run the risk of failing in that process, that if step 1 isn't firmly in place, the likelihood is that there's going to be relapse sooner or later.
Most people will start with themselves and their immediate family and start from that nucleus and work their way out.
I've damaged that many people, not physically, but emotionally and spiritually and physically, But family members, I didn't physically damage them, but I emotionally robbed them. Other men I've kind of harmed with physical violence.
Now, because of the preparatory work that was being done in 4, 5, 6 and 7, they will be able to know the exact nature of the harm that they've caused to others. So that's where these all start to link in together. So, you've harmed somebody. And what I always say when I'm working with somebody is, the list, the people that you need to put on the list is when you get that moment, when you think about them and you get that, ouch. Those people need to go on your list.
What I found is usually the people in the family are the people most harmed, because the addiction starts with self and gradually works out. So therefore the people closest to you are the people who end up receiving the negative consequences of an addict's actions, in the form of maybe theft from them, abuses of them, verbal or otherwise physical, and then gradually work out towards society as a whole.
I'd mentioned people that I'd hurt in my step 1 and in my step 4, but step 8 asked me to go deeper and look at exactly what harm I'd done to them and write about that, and that was why it got quite painful.
It was hard making the list because, again, it brought up certain feelings in me, i.e. guilt, shame, remorse, and also at times it brought up anger in me because some of these people on my list, they harm me as well. But the list ain't about what they done to me, it's about what I done to them. But again, it's about that process, In order to change, to be forgiven, you have to forgive.
My daughter was on there, and there was things that I did in my addiction that caused her harm. I was looking at the things I'd done, how that had affected her and how it was still affecting her at that time. So there were ongoing consequences from that, and I was writing about those and acknowledging those things, again, seeing it on black and white, seeing it on paper, which was difficult. It was painful.
Now, the thing about the list is that the list needs to be the name of the person and the harm done. So again, it's not about, I stole £50 from blah, blah, blah. It's whether you made them scared, if it's somebody close to you, whether you broke the trust. Because again, we're looking at the exact nature of the harm. and not opposed to the actual action. Although, yes, the action is important, it's the nature, it's what you've done to them, it's how they felt.
Maybe some people have burgled neighbours, or they've just rolled around drunk in the street and been embarrassed the local community. And then it gets wider, bigger types of crime committed in order to fund addictions and alcoholism. The negative impact on society of addiction itself. And some people, they don't feel ready to make amends. They don't feel ready to own it, what they've done. And so that's why I'm saying it's a long process. It's something that doesn't all have to be done in a day, and you make a list in a day and then that's it. It's done and dusted.
And there was a few people I could not make amends to, because if I had, I would have been telling them such stuff, things that they knew nothing about, that would have then just caused them pain 20 years after it had happened. You just can't do that. You've got to be willing to make amends to the people you can, and accept that you can't make amends to everybody. This is about them. This is about making amends to them. It's not about making yourself feel better. So that's why it's important to make a list with somebody else and go through it, because we quite often we think we can just go off and make amends to people, and it's not always appropriate. We can cause people a lot of pain in the process. So yeah, making a list and having a good look at it is important.
We're not encouraging people to think about making the amends, of going and apologising. What we're asking them to do is just think about those people that you've harmed. And that's it. Nothing more than that. And that keeps them focused, because sometimes what happens with addicts and alcoholics is they start running away with themselves and start thinking about how they're going to make the amends. Well, this is not what that step's about.
It may be an ongoing process. Memories may come back of someone else or something else that you've harmed at some time in the past. So a step 8 list can be an ongoing thing. However, if you were to sit down and make a list of all people you've harmed, the institutions that you might have damaged, society as a whole that you might have damaged, and start to really look at that.
The important part is the willingness, because it's not always possible to make amends for, and that's something I knew that I was going to look at within step 9. So step 8 was just being willing.
Yeah, with a sponsor again, I got my list, my harms list from my step 4. Writing my step 4, looking at the people that I'd wronged, and then I got the list from my step 4, and it was quite painful looking at the list.
Now, in some cases, they're going to have to think quite carefully about the best way in which those amends can be made, because it might not be appropriate. Go and knock on the door and saying, "Oh, I'm here to say sorry and to apologise," when other people in their lives may have moved on and created new lives for themselves, and to then come back into that life may be awkward and difficult and create more problems for both parties, perhaps. So people may have to think a little bit imaginatively about how they can make amends.
The top of my list, which I believe would be the most painful, was my children. And I dreaded making my amends to them, But the fact that with step 8, it's about being willing to make the amends, because sometimes you just can't do that. Sometimes people have passed away, or they've moved away and you can't get hold of them.
I was also knew that I had to put myself on there as well, and I was the last person on the list, but also looking at the harm that I'd caused myself throughout my life and throughout my addiction, and being willing to make amends to myself as well.
It's absolutely vital that each individual remembers to put themselves on the list. My personal belief is that one of the people that you've harmed the most is yourself. It's your own dignity, your own pride, your own health, your own values, morals. And I think it's very important to put yourself at the top of the list. And again, that might sound, well, how do I make an amend to myself? What do I do? Look in the mirror and say sorry? Well, no, give yourself another day clean, maybe. It's just making an amend. And every day that you manage to put your head on the pillow without using, that's an amend to yourself.
Initially, when I was writing my Step 8 list, I was terrified. You know, I have to be honest, I did not find any of the steps particularly easy. You know, it is a process, and owning who you are and getting to know that character is not an easy process. It's not a lot of fun. However, the rewards of doing it are amazing.
Step 8, you know, looking at the list, and yeah, it was painful and it was harmful, and I didn't feel good about myself, you know, but there was a time when I would feel good about myself, and that was doing Step 9.
People come to it probably now with some humility, with some insight, with some recovery and some clarity about what needs to happen next.
In my list of Step 8, there was a lot of people, family, friends, my daughter, ex-partners, but there was also places. There was shops that I'd stolen from. There was organisations that I'd, taken things from and let down throughout my life. So, and then it became Step 9 was the opportunity then to make amends for my behaviour. And making direct amends wherever possible, unless to do so cause harm.
So it's important to keep that in mind, that when it causes harm, we'll find another way to make an amend. So it's not necessary for every person on your Step 8 list to go and find them directly and apologise to them. However, it is important to make an amend of some sort. So by going out and putting in action, by going and maybe doing some voluntary work, by staying another day clean, by not coming home and embarrassing and causing your family shame, is a form of making an amend.
You know, sometimes it might be as simple as maybe doing a bit of voluntary work or making a donation to a charity that they know this person might approve of. So it's trying to make as direct amends as possible, unless there are some risks that it might cause some concerns or problems.
A lot of addicts and alcoholics think that this is just about saying sorry, and it's much more than that. And this is the part that a lot of people don't see. What this step is about is being able to hold your head up high again and walk with your back tall and proud, having done the right thing.
The way that I make amends to other people is by going to them and sitting down with them and asking them how my actions and my behaviours made them feel, you know, and kind of telling them, as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, you need never feel like that again.
I denied my children time and money and support. You know, when my daughters were teenagers and needed to turn to their mum, I was disconnected because most of the time I was unconscious. So I had to kind of own how I behaved, and to sit and make those amends to them and talk to them. You know, that was quite an order for me. However, it was really rewarding, and they were beautiful actually. They said it was okay, that the best thing you can do now is just stay clean, Mum. You know, just stay clean.
They might sit down and tell you exactly how they felt, you know, on the exact nature of what you've done to them. And it's not nice to hear it, you know. It's not nice, but you need to hear it. And all that it reinforces that you don't do it again.
So there was a bit of work I had to do with my sponsor to look at, who I could make amends to, and who on my list or what on my list that I wasn't able to make amends to, either because it just wasn't possible, or because to do so would cause more harm. And I did have some people on my list that it would have caused more harm.
So if you've stolen something and there's a cost, then you need to give them back that amount of money. Whether they take that money or not is up to them. But that's a full and proper and rightful amends.
Just repeatedly saying sorry doesn't work. Our families have probably heard sorry many, many, many times over the years. So just saying sorry doesn't cut it. Sorry doesn't pay the rent, really. there needs to be direct action, there needs to be continued clean time, there needs to be a changing of attitudes and behaviours, possibly even changes of belief as to the outcome as time goes along.
And it's more than just making an apology. It's not, an apology's just a very small part of it. And I also knew that, I'd spent years, apologising and then just carrying on doing the same thing. So the apology was like the smallest part really of step 9. The taking responsibility for my behaviour and changing that behaviour and making amends that way for me was more important.
One of the most powerfulest amends that I ever made, I assaulted someone and he ended up going into a wheelchair. And I was about 18 months clean, and I saw him in London, and I went up and I made amends to him. And I went and spoke to him, and I kind of said that I'm responsible for the way you are, and I'm truly, truly sorry for this, truly sorry. And he kind of said, you know what, I forgave you years ago, but can you forgive yourself?
The spiritual principle behind this step is forgiveness, and it's about being able to forgive yourself and being able to walk tall and look proud and not see that person and be scurrying around hiding from them because you've not said sorry and you've not paid them back what you owe them.
It's about me taking ownership and saying, look, I messed up, I was wrong, and I won't do it again. How they receive that, that's down to them. Some of them might not receive it at all.
Now, the preparatory work in step 1 to 8 will help you if, for example, you go to somebody and you say to them, I'm really sorry for what I done to you. Here's the £50 that I stole from you. And that person says, thank you very much, but I don't ever want to see you again, blah, blah, blah. How the person that you're making the amends to chooses to take that amends is entirely up to them. However, you have done the right thing.
So that kind of change of behaviour, change of attitude about bringing something to the family table, bringing something to the society table really, maybe doing a bit of voluntary work, maybe giving back a bit to society, because Lord knows we've took for years. And if we can change that behaviour and start to give something, again, it changes, it helps society, it helps our family, but it helps the individual to start to realise their potential and realise their worth.
Giving money to charity, raising money for charity is all part of my amends process. It's giving something back. Being a better mum to my daughter is making amends, being able to provide her with a stable home, the stability that she didn't get when she was younger, being able to provide her with that was making amends. Just by staying clean was making amends.
It gives the addict a sense of pride again in themselves. And okay, you may still have that moment of, I've done something wrong, but at least you know that I've done something to repair.
Then you should feel a bit better and you should feel a bit freer. But most of all, other people should feel a bit better. What concerns me is that I clear my side of the street, because holding on to some of them things might take me back to using or drinking again.
I'm still making amends to those people. With my children, it is constant amends on a daily basis. It's about being present. It's about being relied upon, and there when they need me. My children in their 20s, but they're having a mother that they haven't had really their whole life. We're getting to know each other as adults, all of us, and it's sometimes it can be quite difficult, but it's a blessing. The steps are a gift, and when you can follow them and work through them, it is just so liberating. The experience is amazing.